Claude Opus 4.6 just managed 50 human software developers. It assigned their work, it closed tickets, it knew who to escalate to, and honestly, it did this better than most human managers I've worked with. Look, I know I keep saying AI is moving fast, but this time, I need you to actually stop and absorb what just happened. Because your mental model of what AI can and cannot do, it is already wrong, and I'm going to prove it to you in the next few minutes. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what changed, why it matters whether you code or not, and what you need to do about it. Let's get into it. Here's what kicked this whole thing off. Anthropic gave 16 instances of Claude Opus 4.6. One job, build a C compiler from scratch, no human writing code, just AI agents working together. 2 weeks later, they delivered over 100,000 lines of Rust code. A fully functional compiler that can build a Linux kernel on 3 different architectures, x86, ARM, and RISC-V. It passes 99% of brutal torture test suite designed specifically to break compilers. It compiles Postgres, it compiles a bunch of other production software, and the total cost is about $20,000. Now, $20,000 sound like a lot if you're thinking about your personal budget, but if you're thinking about how much it costs to hire a team of senior engineers to build a compiler from scratch, that's pennies. We're talking about work that would normally cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and take months of human effort. And here's what really got me. One of the Anthropic's researchers involved in this project, Nicholas Carlini from the Safeguard team, admitted something that I think we're all feeling. He said, "I did not expect this to be anywhere near possible so early in 2026. That is someone on the inside, someone building the system, and even he was shocked." Let me put the timeline in perspective. A year ago, autonomous AI coding could top out barely 30 minutes before the model lost a thread. Barely 30 minutes. That's just last summer. Rakuten got 7 hours of sustained autonomous coding out of Claude, and everybody thought it was incredible. 30 minutes to 7 hours to 2 weeks in 12 months. This is not a trend line, this is a phase change. But here's the thing, the compiler wasn't even the main feature of this release. It was basically a side demonstration. And understanding why requires looking at what actually changed under the hood. Opus 4.5 could find a needle in a haystack 18% of the time. Opus 4.6, 76%. That is not an upgrade. It is a completely different capability, and it changed everything about what AI can do with your code. Let me explain why Opus 4.6 feels like such a giant leap. Anthropic announced a 5x expansion in a context window from 200,000 tokens to 1 million tokens. That means Opus 4.6 can hold roughly 50,000 lines of code in a single session, up from about 10,000 previously. But here's what most people miss. Having a big context window is meaningless if the model can actually use what it is. There's a benchmark called MRCR v2 that measures something crucial. Can a model retrieve or use information buried inside long context window? Can it find a needle in a haystack? Sonnet 4.5, which was a great model just a few months ago, has a million token window, but its ability to find a needle about 18.5, roughly 1 chance in a 5. Gemini 3 Pro a little better, about 26%, 1 chance in a 4. These were the best available models in January. They could hold your code bases. They couldn't reliably read it. The context window was like a filing cabinet with no index. Documents went in, but retrieving them was basically a random guess past the first quarter of the content. Opus 4.6 at a million tokens, 76% retrieval accuracy. At 250,000 tokens, a quarter of the window, that raises to 93%. That is the number that matters. This is the difference between the model that sees one file at a time and a model that holds the entire system in head simultaneously. Every import, every dependency, every interaction between models, all visible at once. Think about what separates a senior engineer from a contractor reading a codebase for the first time. The senior engineer carries a mental model of the whole system. They know that changing the auth module might break the session handler. They know the rate limiter shares the state with a load balancer, not because they looked it up, because they've lived in the code long enough that the architecture becomes intuition. Opus 4.6 can do this for 50,000 lines of code simultaneously, not by summarizing, not by searching. It just holds the entire context and reason across it. And this is exactly why those 16 agents could build that compiler, but they didn't do it alone. They did it with a team, which brings me to one of the most important features nobody's talking about enough. Opus 4.6 shipped a completely new capability that didn't exist at all in January. Agent teams. Anthropic internally calls them team swarms, which is a little scary, and I can see why marketing team changed the name, but it is accurate. Here's how it works. Multiple instances of Claude code run simultaneously. They coordinate through a shared task system with three simple states: pending, in progress, completed. One instance acts as your lead developer. It decomposes the project into work items, assigns them into specialists, track dependencies, and unlock bottlenecks. These specialist agents work independently, and when they need something from each other, they don't just go through the lead. They can message each other directly. Peer-to-peer coordination. It's not a hop and a spoke. You've got a front-end agent, you've got a back-end agent, you've got a testing agent. They are essentially recreating an entire software engineering org inside Claude Code. This is exactly how the C compiler got built. It wasn't one model doing everything sequentially. It was 16 agents working in parallel. Some building the parser, some building the code generator, some building the optimizer, all coordinating through the same structures that human engineers teams use. Except they work 24 hours a day. They don't have stand-ups, and they resolve coordination through direct messaging rather than waiting for the next sprint planning session. Here's what's fascinating. This hierarchical structure wasn't imposed by Anthropic. It emerged. Cursor's autonomous agent system independently organized itself into a hierarchical structure too. A frame called Software Factory is built around the exact same pattern. This is a convergent evolution, multiple teams building different systems, all arriving at the same organizational structure. Hierarchy isn't a human choice imposed on a system to maintain control. It is an emergent property of coordinating multiple intelligent agents on complicated tasks. Humans invented management because management is what intelligence does when it needs to coordinate at a scale. AI discovered the same thing, and Opus 4.6 is the first model that ships with the infrastructure to run it as a feature. If you're finding this valuable, hit subscribe. I break down these AI developments every week because this stuff is moving too fast to ignore. Now, let me show you what this looks in a real world. Rakuten, a massive Japanese company, e-commerce, fits over 70 businesses. They deployed Claude Code across their engineering organization. Not as a pilot, in production, real work, real code, real users. When they put Opus 4.6 in their issue tracker, here's what happened in a single day. The AI closed 16 issues by itself, not help engineer close them, it did the work. It also routed 12 other issues to the right team members across a 50-person organization spanning to 6 different code repositories. The model understood not just the code, but the org chart, which team owns which repo, which engineers had context on which subsystem, what needs immediate attention versus what needs a human decision. That is not code intelligence, this is a management intelligence. Their time to market a new feature dropped from 20 working days to 5 days. That is a 76%, 79% reduction. But here's the part that really got me. They're now building something called Ambient Agent that breaks complex tasks into 24 parallel Claude Code sessions. Each one handles a different slice of their massive monorepo, work that would normally take 1 month of human engineering time, running as 24 simultaneous agent systems. And this is important. Non-technical employees of Rakuten are using the system that contribute to developers through the terminal interface. People who've never written codes are shipping features. The terminal isn't for engineers anymore. The boundary between technical and non-technical keeps breaking down. That distinction has organized knowledge worker hiring for 30 years. It is dissolving in months. Cursor, the AI coding tool, just hit $1 billion in annual recurring revenue with roughly 300 employees. That is $3.3 million per employee. They hit $100 million ARR in 12 months with basically seed capital. For context, traditional SaaS companies consider $300,000 in revenue per employee to be excellent. $800,000 is elite. That is Notion territory. Cursor is running at 7x what the best public SaaS companies have achieved. Midjourney, $500 million with around 100 employees, $5 million per person, zero marketing spending, zero external funding, Lovable, the AI app builder, hit $200 million in ARR just in 8 months with 15 people, the fastest 0 to $100 million in European startup history. These aren't outliers anymore. These are what AI native companies look like. And here's what should really make you pay attention. Microsoft, the company selling GitHub Copilot to everyone, has started encouraging thousands of their own employees to use Cloud Code internally. They're literally telling their engineers to use a competitor's product because it works that well. When Microsoft tells its own people to use Anthropic's tool, that tells you about everything, anything, where the leverage has shifted. Amazon's famous two-pizza team formula, the idea that no team should be larger than what 2 pizzas can feed, is evolving into something even smaller. The emerging model is 2 to 3 humans plus a fleet of specialized agents, organized not by function but by outcome. McKinsey, the company that sells organizational design to every Fortune 500, is targeting agent parity by the end of 2026, matching the number of AI agents to human workers across their entire firm. The relationship between headcount and output is broken. The organizations that figure out a new ratio first are going to outrun everyone still hiring the old way. So yes, if you had a specific prompt pattern that worked perfectly on Claude 4.5, might not work the same way on a 4.6. But that doesn't change what this model can demonstrably do. The compile is real. The 500 vulnerabilities are real. The Rakuten deployment is real. Sometimes the skepticism is valid. Sometimes people frustrated that their personal workflow changed. Both can be true. Here's what I need you to understand. The tools you've mastered in January are different generation from the tools that shipped this week. Opus 4.5 came out in November, just a couple months ago. It already feels like a lifetime ago. 3 minutes of autonomous coding to 2 weeks, that happened in 12 months. The current rate, agents working autonomously for weeks, will be routine by summer. By the end of 2026, we're likely seeing agents building full production applications over a month or more complete with security reviews, more test suits, documentation. The CEO of Anthropic puts the odds of $1 billion solo-founded company emerging by the end of 2026 at 70 to 80%. 1%, $1 billion company this year. If you work in AI, you know this feeling. It's like you're time traveling. You see what's happening and then you talk to someone who hasn't heard about it and they look at you like you're crazy. AI can't find security vulnerabilities human missed. It found 500. Non-technical people can't build software. They're doing it under an hour. So here's my challenge to you. If you code, try running a multi-agent session on real work, not a toy problem, your actual code base. Watch how the agent coordinates. That experience will change your mental model more than anything I can say. If you don't code, open Cloud Cowork and hand it a task that you've been procrastinating on. Describe the outcome, not the steps. The gap between what you expect and what you get is a gap between your mental model and where tools actually are. Every month now matters. In March, you should be touching tools built in March. The future of knowledge work depends on keeping pace. If this helps you understand what's actually happening, subscribe. I break this down every week because staying current isn't optional anymore.